What is up, awesome people of the internet? Raven Johnson versus Caitlin Clark. The South Carolina Gamecocks versus the Iowa Hawkeyes. The rematch that we have all been waiting for has happened, in the championship game, no less. And it was glorious to see. Yes, Dawn Staley and her South Carolina Gamecocks did come out the victor in this game, but truly this was a win for the game of women's basketball as a whole. Because for the third time in 7 days, women's basketball drew its largest audience ever, culminating in 18.7 million people watching on average as South Carolina completed their undefeated season, might I add, peaking at 24 million viewers. So viewership was up 89% from last year. Last year in the championship game between Iowa and LSU, we saw a then record of 9.9 million viewers. And fast forward a year later, the Elite Eight matchup last week between Iowa and LSU had 12.3 million viewers. Friday's Final Four matchup between Iowa and UConn had 14.2 million viewers watching the game. And now, on a Sunday at 2 p.m., not even in prime time, we got 18.7 million viewers for Iowa versus South Carolina. Now, let me actually put this game into perspective. This game on Sunday was the most watched basketball game, men's or women's, college or pro, since 2019, when the men's NCAA championship between Virginia and Texas Tech happened. Virginia won that game, by the way. Anyway, that game in 2019 drew 19.63 million viewers, and ever since 2019, no basketball game has gotten close until now. To put this 18.7 million even more into perspective, this is the second most watched non-Olympic women's sporting event in American history. The number one was the 2015 World Cup final between the U.S. and Japan that had a combined 26.7 million viewers. Now, let's put this even more into perspective. Let's compare it to the NBA. Fun fact, did you know that the last NBA game to get at least 18 million views was Game 6 of the 2019 finals between the Toronto Raptors and the Golden State Warriors? That game had 18.34 million. So yes, this viewership number for Iowa versus South Carolina is a big deal for sports in general. And for women's basketball, this is a thing that has been growing for years. Last year, we saw some record numbers. Last year, we saw the national championship game, the Final Four, the Elite Eight, the Sweet 16, all get more viewers on record last season. This year, the same thing. This is a classic case of if you build it, they will come. All right, now let's state the obvious here. Yes, the Caitlin effect was in full bloom this season. And we saw it with all the year's TV records also coinciding when Iowa was playing. Yes, absolutely. Caitlin was the draw for women's basketball this year. She was the biggest draw of many draws for women's basketball, and Iowa benefited from the ratings, and we all benefited from the ratings as well. But I think it's more than just that. Yes, it's Caitlin. Absolutely. Caitlin is box office. Everybody wants to watch Caitlin Clark play, whether you like women's basketball or not. But also, it was the rivalry that gave us the numbers that we had this year, not just Caitlin Clark. In the Elite Eight, we saw a rematch of last year's national championship game with Iowa and LSU. So last year, LSU won the championship. This year, it was Iowa's turn for redemption. When they met up in the Elite Eight, what do we get? We got a record number of viewers. In the Final Four on Friday, we saw Iowa versus UConn. What was this game? This game was an opportunity for us to see two of women's college basketball's most brightest stars in Caitlin Clark versus Paige Bueckers. These are both players who came into college at the same time. Paige Bueckers won the Player of the Year as a freshman, suffered lots of injuries. As people were forgetting about Paige Bueckers, Caitlin Clark was rising in popularity and what she was doing on the court. Now, at the height of the Clark effect and Paige Becker's returning to the star that she was her freshman year, this was a time where they both clashed. Not necessarily a rivalry game, but a box office game of two of the most hyped guards in the game battling out together. So what do we get? Record number of viewers. Then Sunday, 18.7 million viewers on average tuned in to watch Caitlin go against the team that Iowa took down last year. It was South Carolina's turn for redemption, and it was a rivalry. As Raven Johnson of South Carolina said, this was her turn for revenge. This was a revenge tour. And what do we get from all the hype of, could Caitlin win her final a championship on her way out? Could South Carolina complete this undefeated team? Will Raven get her redemption? What happened as a result of that? Record. The growth of women's basketball isn't just the talent that's on display, because talent, the women's game has been talented for a long time. It's the talent mixed with the narratives that women's college basketball can own uniquely. And that's because there's no one else who does what they do. We see players play for 4 years, sometimes 5 years in women's college basketball. These rivalries develop, and it leads to excitement and appointment viewing, which leads to records. And it's just truly amazing. Now, as Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Cameron Brink, and Camila Cardoso leave college and head to the WNBA, we will see a further resurgence in viewing for the WNBA. That is the hope. And that's for sure is the hope. And it could be the reality if the WNBA actually plays their cards right. Deloitte has predicted the revenue generated from women's elite sports could surpass $1 billion this year, which is a 300% increase from just 3 years ago. That is a lot of money to be generated by women playing the sport that they love. And I, for one, am very happy to see it. So, we all know that you have probably seen several videos of people on YouTube and in real life talking about women's basketball and how it's boring and no one wants to watch and they play in front of an empty gym. This is a joke that is completely played out and actually has had a merit in the past. However, this is a new day because jokes on them, people are watching. 18.7 million people are watching actually on average in that championship game. And again, 24 million at its peak. Tell me, what else is more entertaining than that? There is so much when it comes to sports. We love sports. Football, basketball, soccer, volleyball, all that stuff. We love it. But ultimately, what sports ultimately is entertainment. And these women are so entertaining. And they're creating a league of their own. And it's great to see. Again, 24 million at its peak watched Iowa versus South Carolina. No rim was lowered. There weren't any dunks. They weren't wearing any revealing outfits. It was just female ballers doing their thing. And people watched. So joke's on you. Women's basketball is awesome. And America is catching up to that fact. So the next time you hear someone talking about women's basketball and talk about how it sucks and no one watches, just send them this video and tell them, joke's on you. Well, that's it for the video. This has been me, Quita, talking about the 18.7 million viewers who watched a women's basketball game this weekend at 2 p.m. Thank you all so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button. Also, please hit that subscribe button as well. Did you watch the game over the weekend? Let me know your thoughts about it. And just let me know your thoughts about the surge of interest in women's sports, specifically women's basketball. We saw women's volleyball when Nebraska have record attendance. We saw Iowa play on a football field earlier this season. We've seen record after record in terms of TV viewership. Let me know, where do you see the future of women's basketball or women's sports in general going? Absolutely, I cannot state this enough that yes, this is the Caitlin effect. primarily, but this isn't only the Caitlin effect. So absolutely, Caitlin Clark needs her flowers for what she has been able to do in terms of garnering support for women's basketball, but also it's the rivalries and it's the different narratives about it. So my hope is, as we reach into the future, as we see the Juju Watkins of the world, the Paige Beckers of the world, the Hannah Hidalgos of the world do their thing next season, my hope is that we continue to see records like this being shown. But the only way that's possible is if the TV networks that are able to tell the stories of the rivalries and not just make it about one player, but make it about a series of players. Because the women's game deserves it. It doesn't just have to be one player. So next year, it doesn't just have to be Paige Beckers. Absolutely, Paige Beckers is going to be box office. But also, there's going to be other players who are going to be doing their thing in women's college basketball. And it's up to the media to highlight those players and talk about them and make sure that they are also household names, just like Caitlin Clark is, just like Angel Reese is. And I think that'll happen, or at least that's my hope. And for the WNBA, absolutely, let's make sure to pack out the WNBA. Let's support the WNBA, and let's ensure that this Caitlin Clark effect peak that we have seen in women's college basketball, that it doesn't end and it continues into the WNBA. All right, guys. Until next time, guys. Bye.